juggling a few things, but we're kind of getting ourselves ready and underway. I'm going to introduce kind of the essence of what we're doing. So first thing, if you're here joining, again, my name is Mike Lewantowicz, been part of the Alliance for over 20 years now. My 20th anniversary of being full-time is coming up on June 1st. And I'm grateful to the Alliance, grateful to Andy Albright, other leaders that have helped me learn and grow. I've got Katrina Gus will be jumping in shortly, and she's become a top producer. She has been working steady and hard since she got started here. She built her business. She built her book of business with leads, and has helped families out from that perspective. Additionally, what she's done is become very good with current clients as she's built her book of business. So I think what's important is, like, at first, and we'll get her to open up more, but at first she was putting in this much for leads. But then because she got good with referrals and current client reviews, her lead cost as a percentage of revenue has dropped. So that's really a big thing that I think is important, is understand what you're building when you get started. And now if you're newer and you're like, okay, I'm still at this point of building my business, here's what I will tell you. While we have people that are doing telesales, we've got them doing telesales out of necessity because that was all we could do for a bit. Some people are finding they're very good at it. Some people are okay with it. Here's my analogy to you. If you're doing telesales and you're comparing that to being in the home, when you're in the home, I'll use your sale as the analogy with a tightrope walker, but with a net. If you're doing a telesale, you're the tightrope walker, no net. What's the difference? When you're there in person, you've got full modes of communication. You're watching them, they're watching you. You've got your facial expressions, you see their facial expressions, the rest of your body language. Are you leaning in? You're in control. If you make a mistake and you slip, you've got the net of all of your modes of communication to talk to you, and it's not easy if they get momentarily upset or frustrated to just kick you out. You have to really have a big faux pas to reach a point where they become so upset that they just kick you out. So on the phone, your only eyes are your ears. You have to be a great question asker. You have to have been through enough appointments to understand what's it look like to really lead somebody through an appointment if you are on the phone only. And if you make a mistake, and when you make mistakes, you don't have the luxury of recovering from those mistakes, because if they get upset or annoyed or disconnected, it's like, boom, drop, done, gone, nothing else to do there. So that's something that I think is important for people to understand. So if you have the choice in the way you're building your business now, I'm going to lean more toward building my practice with face-to-face appointments. Helping somebody understand that face-to-face is how you're going to build your book of business. Now, will there be exceptions of someone who's got a major situation health-wise and they really need somebody to be at a distance from them? Yeah, there's going to be exceptions like that. But the bulk of your business and the bulk of your learning, I'm coaching you and suspecting, probably needs to start by being face-to-face and being in a local market, and you'll be able to grow and learn as you do more. Okay, so that probably be some of the biggest things I would tell you, is understanding that mindset of, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? I'm trying to build a book of business. So I've got a client base that I can reach out to and cultivate and grow, maybe buy more telesales and following up on the phone. But I've got to get my skills level higher. I've got to get my book of business bigger in order for that to occur. So that's the first thing I would try to help you understand and get your mind right with. Now, we're on the phone, we're booking appointments. And And as we're doing that, as we're on the phone and we're booking appointments, my next big thing is, okay, you want to have a good sit ratio. So let's make the assumption. You said, Mike, okay, I'm all in. I'm booking appointments face to face. What are the key things to make sure I've got good appointments when I'm booking face to face? Biggest thing I can tell you, and we'll have Katrina echo this, is slow down, build some of the relationship on the phone. Slow down. I found agents that have a longer call and are more transparent and get the client laughing or talking a little bit have a higher sit ratio. Agents that are just kind of slamming appointments, okay, when are you home? Okay, great, I'll see you, bye, have a much lower sit ratio. Making yourself likable. How? Acknowledging different things that the client's saying. I've always had a longer phone call when I've booked appointments. When I have a longer phone call and I get the client laughing or acknowledging different things, my sit ratio is not perfect, but it's around 80%, 85% sit ratio because I'm talking through making sure they're going to be there, finding directions, making sure their spouse knows. If I hear something, I'm acknowledging it. And so the cornerstone, if you're running face-to-face appointments, is making sure you're having face-to-face appointments. Some people say, Mike, should I double book? Yeah, double booking or overbooking, that's good, but let's not disguise the fact that maybe you should be having a better sit ratio and you can control that. It will never be perfect, but what can you do to make that sit ratio better? That's the big thing. So slow down. Get some of your relationship built when you're on the phone. And I think with the COVID stuff, because some of you are like, well, hey, Mike, I booked up a bunch of appointments and nobody's there. Really? First of all, if they're quarantined, where the hell did they go? Think about that for a second. They must have really disliked you because not only are they supposed to be at home, and not only they're not answering the door, they're leaving the house, so they're not there when you get there trying to avoid you. So if you think about that for a second, and you know, if you are paying attention, make sure that you really are thinking that through, and if you'll slow down and listen to the things they might be hesitating on, asking questions about what's going on in their world and their life, I think it's going to help you have a much more significant sit ratio. Katrina, I see you've joined us. We got your video on. You ready to roll?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Sorry.
Yay, Katrina. All right. So I've literally just got us underway talking about the value of building your book of business with the in-home and how, while a lot of people may know that you've had great success on a telesales arena with current clients now, the skills in the book of business you built by being face-to-face. So we kind of made that a cornerstone. I've talked about how you and I have had the discussions of slowing down on the phone script to acknowledge, to breathe, to let some of the relationship be built so they're excited about you coming over and not saying yes to coming over. I know some people, their clients are saying, yes, I'll be there just to get you off the phone because they can't stand you and they know that they're not going to be there. That's not healthy. So if you're not listening truly to their objections, I'd rather take a serious no on the phone than just bulldoze my way through it only to be disappointed and upset that they're not present. So Katrina, talk a little bit about things that you're asking and doing on the appointment setting side so that you know that you've got a well-booked appointment.
Well, first of all, I say, number one, I think it has to do with tone initially. So when you're answering the phone, I've been listening to people who have been coming here in the office and dialing, and they sound very professional, which I guess is not a bad thing, except for if you're trying to do this, because people are not thinking, they're not thinking about you as a person. If you act all professional and you sound very, yes, Mr. Lewantowicz, may I speak with you about such and such and such? I mean, it just makes me want to kind of hang up immediately. So I would say first and foremost, that's what I've noticed a lot. I mean, I've seen people from different parts of the country. The more formal you sound, I think the worse it is. Get a little bit redneck. It makes people feel more comfortable. I don't know what to say. Talk like a human. If we speak properly and use all the right words, and we might as well be computers. I guess that's my point. So I would start with that. But then just sitting there and talking to them, the script that I'm using, hey, Mike, how's it going? Is pretty much how I'm starting out. And unless they're just really in a bad mood, or unless they're just really a nasty person, most of the time they'll sit there and talk to you for a minute. And I'm going through the script as I'm talking to them, but at the same time, they don't know that I'm going through a script, and they don't know that I'm trying to get them to come along with me. They just know that they're really comfortable.
There we go. That's big. And so, I think being on a first name basis, the moment you start the call, there's so many fundamental, simple things, but not sounding so sterile, and scripted. And I mean, how do you know someone is a telemarketer? Hi, Katrina, this is so-and-so calling about such and such, or so-and-so from somewhere calling about such and such. I'm like, how about start with a friend? Hey, Katrina. Yeah. Hey, this is Mike. Hey, I'm giving you a call back. Hey, I got this form on my desk. I'm supposed to give you a shout about how's your day going? I mean, what interspacing the friendship with things. So that's, I think, the first thing is you start off there. Katrina, I know you do this whether you recognize it or not, but you're a noticer. So when you notice stuff, sounds in the background, tones of voices, things that they mention, how do you ignore it, or do you respond and engage with them over it?
And I would say I would never ignore it. Anything going on, whether it's good or bad, I'm going to bring it up. Dogs barking in the background. Oh my gosh, that sounds like a big dog. What kind of dog do you have? I love dogs. And I can say that because I do. So, just acknowledging things like that, or it sounds like everything's kind of crazy there. Everything okay? Like
you're a police siren. Are the police coming for you? Do you need to run?
Exactly.
Do you need a cover for you?
Yep. And that's something that you're really good at, because I've heard you, listening to you talk to people, even things that could be really uncomfortable, you kind of turn around and make it like, yeah, I heard that. Just making sure you're all right. They ain't knocking the door down or anything, are they? And it just really disarms them.
Yes. If you can make them laugh even on the phone. So and this leads up, because we say the first thing when we get into the homes, the bond and rapport is the most important. Well, if you can start your bond and rapport now, you'll be better at having a better sit ratio. And you've already started to lay the foundation of your bond and rapport. They're already starting to like you on the phone.
Right.
So I think that fundamental piece. So start off acting like a friend. Start off with making sure you acknowledge and are listening for cues and just paying attention to who they are. Yes, you're focused on the appointment, but in such a way that you're being likable through the process.
Right.
Okay. Anything else that you think is critical, or anything else you picked up on, whether it's COVID related or anything else, or just appointment setting in general, mistakes that rookies are making or some veterans might be making, they need to adjust?
Right. Well, I think probably the biggest thing is making sure that people know that you can adjust. The issue that I run across is, yes, you have a script in front of you. I understand that you need to get to the script. If it has anything to do with anything other than insurance or anything other than booking the appointment, don't make it sound like it's scripted. You just kind of listening to people on the phone, I'll notice that it's like, how are you doing today? It's Even asking them how they're doing sounds scripted. I mean, you can't do that, but you have to be willing to think outside the box. So when people ask me, well, what do you say to this person? What do you say to this person? I said, honestly, I hate to be obtuse, right? I don't want to not explain myself, but I do want to say it depends on the person. If I, like we were talking about, police sirens or dogs barking or kids wailing, I'm not going to just fly through my script and not acknowledge that and not talk to people. So it depends means you're noticing what's going on around them. If you can hear it, you're noticing their tone of voice and you're reacting appropriately. You know, sometimes I'll people get on the phone like, yeah, okay. I asked them how they're, good. Said, you're probably thinking, I don't know who the heck this is calling me, aren't you? And then they laugh. They're like, oh yeah. I said, oh, sorry. It's Katrina, your insurance lady, or whoever it is that I'm calling, right? But I have to react, whether it's to a situation or their tone of voice. I'm listening to how they're talking, how they're sounding, and it's going to be different for everybody. So the main thing I would say is listen. Like, listen, actually pay attention. Quit trying to think about what you're going to say. If you listen to them, you'll know what you need to say because you're responding to a person. You're not a computer. We're not automated. If you sound that way, I'm sorry, you're not going to be making a whole lot of money.
Yeah, that's big. Okay, so based on that, you're now booking the appointment. Some fundamental things. Are you getting driving directions? Are you asking for a description of the house? Where is the house number? Is it a 1-story or 2-story? Do they have are you writing it down? Are you making sure their spouse is going to be there? All these simple things. Okay. So now fast forward with the appointment. And we've always talked about at the Alliance, the 4 basics of the in-home. We say, pick up the check or pick up a phone. We've talked about making sure you're finding about retirement money, finding about referrals, ERS referrals, and recruiting across the table. So now I've expanded my training to focus more on this first step here and then still include these. So something I call the 8 keys to locking the sale that I've been teaching for several years now. And so we're going to walk through that. The first one, if you're making a list, we'll come back and we'll fill all these in, but we'll hit you with the list here real quick. So number 1 is bond and rapport. If you don't have the bond and rapport locked in, ain't nothing else going to matter. And we'll come back to these. Number 2, finding the need, clarifying the need or the pain or their why. Number 3, health underwriting or underwriting and factors, health, driving record, whatever else. Number 4, calling from the home to verify the best option for the product. Number 5, presenting the options. Number 6, completing the application. So these 6 kind of make up the first big one of the 4 pieces of what we call the 4 basics in the home. We've just broken that first one down into several bits. Okay, we're going to expand on these. And then number 7 is the post-sale, which includes following up on annuity money, referrals, or Medicare opportunities. Okay, those are 3 big areas right there. Or I'll just say secondary needs, secondary sales in general. And then number 8 is a final departure call, checking in before you leave. And I think that's a big one. So we'll kind of walk through these, but we're going to spend probably a lot of time on 1 through 6 today, knowing that there is a lot of training on ERS referrals, annuities, and Medicare supplement and Medicare Advantage type stuff. So probably make most of our talk here and training around these first 6 of what I call the 8 keys. So first one, bond rapport. We've already said it starts on the phone. But now, Katrina, as you're walking into a home, what are the key things that you're trying to establish? What's important to you when you're walking into a home and you're setting the tone, you're building up your relationship? What are some of the things, big things you always have in mind or that you're needing to remind yourself or other agents to do?
You can probably see a theme with everything that I tell you ever, which is be a noticer, pay attention to people. So when I'm walking into a home, I'm paying attention to where I am, what kind of neighborhood I'm in, what they've got parked in the driveway or don't, whether or not they mow their grass or plant flowers or don't, how their house smells, if the doorbell works. I'm paying attention to all of that stuff. It's because, number one, I have to know what I'm dealing with, but knowing what you're dealing with is only, if I just substitute that and say that I care, right, which I do. If I substitute that and I say care about people, be a noticer, pay attention, that covers pretty much everything. If I care about somebody, I'm not going to be thinking about everything else that I have to do when I'm walking up to go see them. I'm going to talk to them, and I'm going to notice how things are going with them. I'm going to notice, that they live in a nice place, or that they live in a crappy place, or that they have flowers planted, or, hey, I had a lady one time, she had fake flowers outside her house, and she was showing me, she said, oh yeah, they look great. They're totally fake. I cared about what she was telling me because that was important to her. I don't want to just notice something just so that I can sound scripted and I'm quote unquote noticing. You have to pay attention. So that's what I'm automatically walking into the house with. Just kind of pay attention to the surroundings and then letting them talk. So when I'm coming in, I'm not pulling out any information about anything that I'm doing work-wise. All I'm doing is talking to them and listening to them and just kind of letting them set the tone of the conversation. Is that kind of what you're looking for, Mike?
Yes. So exactly. What you said about being a noticer is huge. And noticing if there's people that have closed off body language, noticing that there's a problem, not being afraid to address it. If you had a friend and you notice they were frantic, we just say, oh my gosh, you seem to be frantic. What's going on? Can you be it's like acknowledging the obvious as opposed to, oh my gosh, this anxiety they're having, it's going to screw up my sale. I better move quickly past this and not let this become a problem. I think you
can't ignore it.
If you're ignoring the elephant in the room, you're going to have a problem. You're going to step in elephant poo, So you got to acknowledge the elephant in the room and find out where's the head, where's the butt, so you don't step in the pile of poop later on.
That's right.
So that really is critical. Okay. So that bond of rapport, making sure you got both parties present. What do you do if you've got where one spouse is engaged and the other spouse maybe not so much?
Well, I'll tell you, if you continue on and ignore that, again, you're going to be stepping in elephant poo. So most of the time, it depends on the spouse. I mean, if they're staring daggers at me, I might handle them a little bit differently, maybe than somebody who just looks like they're bored. So I'll just start talking to the spouse. Or, sometimes if it's a husband, he's not engaged, and he's walking to the other room, I kind of look at his wife to kind of see what she's thinking. I can watch her and see, oh, he does this all the time. Or sometimes I'll look at her and she goes, what's he doing? I said, I don't know. What's he doing? And then I'll call after him, Frank, where you going, man? What are you doing? I need you too. So I'm talking to people and responding, but I'm going to probably pick up my conversation with whoever is looking at me with ugly eyes or walking away or rolling their eyes or whatever they're doing. I'm telling you, it's all the same, Mike. I don't know how to keep saying anything differently. Pay attention and address it.
Are there any questions that you use to get people to open up or topics? Obviously, I think we could teach this again. If you're using the ATM is a tool to maybe help give you some talking points. The ATM is not going to make them warm up to you. The ATM is an inanimate object, but it's there to remind you of questions that can help you ask things of them. Introduce yourself a teeny bit, but really get them talking about themselves more. So I know some people, they like to have the ATM out right away. Some bring it out later. The key is, are you using it? If you are using it, are you using it in such a way that it's helping you bond and rapport, or are you using it because you're trying to follow through on these steps just to say, I did the steps? You want to be using a way to say, am I getting to know the client? Am I getting them talking about themselves? Are they getting comfortable in telling me more as I tell a little bit about myself and get them talking about themselves? Thinking that's, and if somebody, in fact, I'll just say, if people here, if you're listening and you got questions and you've got my contact info, you want to hit me with a question for Katrina, that's fine. Or if you want to post a note in the chat, we might be able to see it. And I think the chat is open. I'm not sure. Raise a hand if you've got a question. We might be able to somehow engage. And if you've got more questions on these. But once you're in the home, this bond and rapport is key. You can't just blow through if they're not communicating, not open up, or totally resistant. And because they're not resistant because they're not open doesn't mean you stop and leave the appointment. You try to work on different things. I mean, maybe you blew it, but maybe you've got another chance. Maybe you notice what's their hot button. Maybe you get them talking about something else. And again, that's where you can ask questions that directs their mind. And the question game is so powerful here when you're with your clients, because when you're with your clients and you're there and you get them, so you understand just the power in asking a question is like a mind control. And so now you can get their mind to where you need it to be to get them down this path. It's a little bit like herding cats, but you're able to herd them with questions sometimes. And it may not feel precise, but you'd be surprised the more you play the game of asking good questions, how you can steer and lead the conversation down a path. And that really is, I think that's something that people mess up and they miss. And if you'll do that, it's like, once you get that, it's like, holy cow, I can do this. It's a little bit like walking a dog with a retractable leash. The dog might think it's free, but the moment he goes too far, you ask another question, it reins him in, just like you might pull back on that retractable leash. If that's a good analogy for you to sit here and listen, you're allowing the client to feel like they're in control, but you're the maestro who's in control based on the flow of this conversation. Now, somebody on the outside might say that you have the client talking about all sorts of stuff. You're not in control. Keep watching, and you'll see that we're gradually steering them down a path. All right, so now we got this bond and rapport. Now, and maybe we're starting to weave into why am I here? What are they trying to do? What's their main concern? What are the things you're doing there, Katrina? What are some of your big initial questions, be it mortgage protection or final expense? What are some of the biggest things you're starting to tee off with as you start to get them comfortable with you being there and who you are? What's the big questions you're asking to identify the pain and what's going on?
So probably the first thing that I'm going to do, I want to address something that you mentioned about just kind of letting them talk. And I think that there's a lot to that. So I'm going to let them talk. And sometimes I'm going to let them talk longer than others because I'm learning things about them. If you just start asking questions and only letting them answer certain questions, they might have something that they want to say. Maybe they don't know what they're trying to do or what they're trying to say, but if you just listen to them, they'll go in the direction where you're going to learn something that's helpful about them. So I just kind of let them talk. There's certain things that you can kind of tune out here or tune out there, if it gets too boring and you start wanting to snore. But what I'm doing is listening for key bits of information about them that I can use to help them. And when I start out, I don't really start out by just asking questions as far as the ATM goes and as far as getting started into the sales process. I kind of let them know, hey, this is how this is going to go, and everybody has a different way maybe that they lay that out. But for the most part, what I'm telling them, whatever language I'm using, is that, hey, I'm here to help you. Sometimes people fill out this form for this reason or this reason or this reason. My job is to make sure that whatever reason you filled it out, that we look out and find what you need, what's going to help your family the most when you die. I'm going to help you figure that out, and then we'll put something in place that makes you feel comfortable that that's handled and something that you can afford too. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I'm here to help you. I'm a case worker. Is that a lie? Nope, not last I checked. If there's something that I can't help them with, I'll help find them somebody to help them with. If I can't help them with insurance or they don't need it, I'm going to be the one to tell them, hey, you don't need this, or I can't help you, because that is going to give them a lot more trust in me as well, because I'm being honest and upfront with them. So that's how I'm starting out the presentation, Mike.
Okay. All right. So that's big. Now, when they start, so I think that's the first thing, is understand what they're trying to accomplish. And everybody's got their style. Some clients, it's particularly clear in their mind what they're trying to accomplish. Some people, it's just more of a feeling, like they know they need to do something. They might have some idea they've latched onto that might be the right idea or the wrong idea, but they kind of have something that they think, whether it's right or wrong, is their idea. It might be the wrong idea, it might be the right idea, but I think this is where we've got to kind of walk them through a little bit. When they say, here's what I think I need, here's what I'm concerned about, that next big question is, well, what do you already have to lean on? Right. What's already in place? If Joe had died yesterday, Susan, what do you have to financially help you move on with life? What do you have access to? So I think that's a big question, and I call it a fire drill type question. It's when we talked about, I think Andy talked about the book, Fierce Conversations. It's having a fierce conversation about their financial reality, and in a very polite way, but a very real way, getting to what is the current reality, defining the current reality. If so-and-so had died a month ago, what are we looking at right now? Katrina, any tips do you have as you walk through that current reality or that fire drill?
I think that everybody has a different personality. Like Mike, you're very systematic. You start out and you have a list and you have things that you go through and go to all the time. And so I think it really kind of depends on the person's personality. I am not systematic. Clearly, not, at least I don't appear to be systematic, right? I've got things that I go through, but it's not gonna sound like it to anybody who's listening. And I think for the most part, I want them to be comfortable. So when I'm going through the quote unquote fire drill, I'm making it sound as relaxed as possible, and I'm pointing out things that I know are making them uncomfortable immediately. So, if they're talking about dying, I had a lady on the phone the other day. We were doing a video chat, and I was talking to her husband, and he's, 15, 20 years older than his wife, and she started crying. And I was thinking, because he was getting down to brass tacks. I don't have enough insurance. Something happens to me, I want to make sure that she's okay. That's very, very obvious to me. It was nothing that I needed to really do any kind of delving into to figure that out. What I did need to do, though, was address the fact that she was over there crying. Why? Because she's thinking about him dying, and it upset her. And I think I swear she thinks we're besties, and she's hilarious now, because she said, we are gonna go shopping when all this is over, because I stopped what I was doing and I was like, what's the matter? What's going on? So I was just he was being very systematic about, he was talking about it. He was bringing everything up, but I stopped and I was paying attention to the fact that she was crying, that she was upset. I figured out who all was on the phone. Their daughter was there, and just kind of sat down and talked to her. I said, listen, here's the bottom line. We're all going to die. Don't get all upset thinking about it. We're just thinking ahead, planning to make sure you got money. Okay. And then we're going to stop talking about him dying. So woosah. Chill out. This is just a 5-minute conversation. The rest of it is going to be about money and how much you're going to spend to make sure that you're okay. As long as he's happy, then we're done talking about death. Okay. And that was pretty much word for word what I said, because it was obviously making her uncomfortable, but it wasn't in the systematic way that you would think that I would do it. Well, if this happened to you, what would happen? I mean, do you make any money right now? No. Okay. Do you work right now? No. So where's y'all's money coming from? Well, he has this pension and this paycheck. Okay. So when he dies, where's all that stuff going to go? Is any of it going to go to you? Well, no. Okay. Well, then I can see why he would be a little bit concerned. Let's make sure that that's not going to be a problem. We're just going to get as much as we can within reason. Okay. Okay. And so I think having the conversation and making it a conversation as opposed to a speech helps a lot. Yeah, of course, people are uncomfortable talking about their loved ones dying. So am I. You know, I had to tell Les the other night, you know, he said, man, that's a lot of insurance you're getting on me. I said, well, anything less than $5 million, you know, is not worth me offing you. So don't worry about it.
I'm going to need a good attorney.
I'm going to have a lot more insurance than just $1 million to consider doing anything to obtain that money. So calm down. But I'm trying to make people comfortable with that conversation.
So it's like, and it's almost like when Andy did that talk about the yin and yang, you're taking them into this position of thinking about the uncomfortable, but you're their friend. And so you've got to wrap them around with being comfortable while you're taking them through the uncomfortable. Like you have to lead them there. You can't ignore that reality. And this is kind of like where you're more like a parent to their being a child. So this is where part of the discussion is, okay, we have to address this. We can't just be like, okay, sugar plums and gumdrops and rainbows and sliding down the rainbows on a unicorn to play with the leprechauns. We can't do that. But you can't be so robotic and harsh that you ignore the person. So it's like, it is both. And a different person might need a different degree of more system and logic and less wrapping your arms around them. Some people are going to need more wrapping your arms around them and a little bit more, and then gently bring in the structure. But in most sales, it's a combination of emotion and logic. And do they like you as you're addressing both parts of this?
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, I want there to be a formula and a recipe. Formula is it's both. And the process, it's a guide. It's not scientific and exact, but if you're addressing both, you'll get there. If you ignore both and you only focus on one, you might get hurt. So you got to pay attention to the person, as Katrina's talking about in this example. Another big thing is we're paying attention to how we ask the questions. Now we uncover other tools and things. Income streams, other life insurance. Katrina, how thorough are you when you find out they've got existing life insurance about getting it out and looking at it and addressing it?
I'm stopping right there. As far as anything else goes, I don't go on. I don't talk about anything that I have or anything that I'm going to suggest until I've reviewed that policy. I'm not relying on them when I'm talking to them and I'm asking them questions. A lot of people say, well, what do you have in place if something happened to Charlie? You know, where you would make sure that your bills got paid. I'm flat out sitting down and saying, hey, what are your bills? You know, well, how much do you pay for this? And how much do you pay for this? And how much do you pay for this? Now, I'm not spending an hour on that, but I'm getting the information, because if you ask them what they have in place and what bills they have, they're answering their own question. They can already see there. I said, okay, so if he dies, you don't get any of his income, right? Or do you get some of it? Well, I don't get any of it. I said, okay, well, look at these bills right here. How are you going to pay them? And they see that and they're answering that question for themselves. If I'm coming out and just asking, well, how would you be financially if something happened to Charlie? They're probably going to say, fine, we'd be fine. even if they filled out the lead that says pay off the mortgage because they were concerned about not being fine. That's going to be their rote response. Oh, we're fine. We'll be okay. No, not last I checked. But as soon as they let me know that they have a policy, I said, okay, grab that, bring it out for me. They already know that I'm there to help them. They already know that I'm trying to find out what's going to work for them. And what's going to work for them is going to depend on what they have in place. I can't see a picture of where you are and what you're doing if I don't have a picture of what you already have in place. And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be what they think it is, or it's not going to be adequate to help them. But we can't just assume. We have to look at it.
Yeah, that's big. Okay. If somebody's resistant and said, oh, well, it's in the safe deposit box. Oh, it's in a box we just moved, and we're not sure who it's with. And how do you handle those kind of things?
Same thing in the beginning. Same as I said, I'm not moving on. I am not moving on. So I don't care what I have to do. Oh man, you can't find it? You mean you don't have everything completely organized in your house? Ha 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 ha. We're laughing about it. But then I'm going to say, listen, how often do you pay it? Well, we pay it every month. Does it come directly out of your bank account? Okay. Well, pull up your bank account on your phone or grab me a bank statement. We're going to find out who it is. I'm not asking them, is it okay? And I was just correcting an agent about that today. Is it okay? Can you see if you can find that? No, it is go find it. Well, I don't know where it is. Well, give me a bank statement. Oh, okay. Well, I bank online. Okay, pull up your app. I'm bossing them around. This is what I want. I need you to go get it. Now, go. Chop, chop. And if they are uncomfortable, then I haven't built enough rapport with them. So until you feel like they're comfortable with whatever you're doing, you have to make sure that you go back and make sure that everything feels good before you move on to that process. If you're not comfortable, then you moved on too quickly and you didn't listen to them.
Yeah. That is big. That's big. And so the good news is you can get some feedback there. You can come back and you can zing them with another question, steer them into something that's more likable, more attractive, more interesting for them. That's an option that you have. So if you feel that, oh, they didn't jump when I said jump, they don't like me or trust me, I must come up with a question to get them talking about a topic they like, switch gears, go on a different path, and then maybe pull back to this here in a minute or two.
Right.
Intuitively, some of us can react and we know we're doing that, some of us don't. Katrina, when you hit a roadblock, like you're asking to go down a direction, whether it's finding about their pain, getting to talk about a policy, when you hit that roadblock and you sense that stumbling, what do you do next?
It depends on the person. It depends on how they're talking to me. With a lot of people, what I'll end up doing is I'll say something along the lines of, I'm not a salesperson. Didn't we have this conversation? I can't help you without getting this information. I'm not trying to be a pain in the butt. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do a bad job and not get all the information to try to figure out how to help you. Remember, I'm here to help you. Or something along those lines. Most of the time, for the most part, it's just that people don't know where stuff is, or they think that you're going to be worried about the time that you're spending with them. I'm not worried at all, ever, about the time that I'm spending someone. It leads me to be late to many things in my life. I understand that is a problem. In this case, it's never a problem because I'm doing a thorough job finding out what I need to do to help people. Look at the consequences if you don't. Many of the sales that I make are because I have reviewed people's policies. If you don't do that, you're missing out on probably, 75% of houses. If they've got something in place, I'm doing something different, or I'm adding to it, or I'm showing them an error that they didn't know was there. I'll be like, well, I mean, it's a heck of a lot better to find this out while you're still alive. Most people, they're already dead. If there's a problem with it, we can't fix it then. And I'm just coming back to the fact that I'm there to help them, because in my heart, that's what I'm there to do. I'm there to help them. Yes, I would like to make money. Trust me. I love that. But if you go back to the basics, which is how I'm the professional, I know what I'm doing. I can't exactly help you unless I know what you got going on. You know, well, I mean, what do I do for this, doc? Or what do I do for this? Or, you know, it's like giving a prescription without taking a health history. I mean, what doctor does that? The stupid ones.
The ones that are selling pain pills.
That's the
ones
ones.
that go to jail for just giving away pain pills without a diagnosis.
Do you want to be that kind of insurance agent? You know, no, you don't. And people will trust you a lot more because they'll believe that you care about them because you're acting like it.
Yeah.
Act like you care. Pay attention.
Yeah. Act like you care. Put the mission before the commission. Like if you will just focus, properly diagnose the problem, slow the puck down, stop being afraid of losing the deal. If you will slow down, you will get a better, more thorough diagnosis. They'll be more likely to swallow the pill if they like you and you've made a more thorough diagnosis. They'll be more likely to accept the truth. Not everybody will. You're going to have some people still in denial, but your ability to get them to understand and digest the truth and accept and move on with an option is way more likely if we're just slowing down. And, you know, again, sometimes you've got the pressure of, oh gosh, I got to get all these appointments. What about my next appointment? So look, you're going to learn what's your curve for how much should I be spacing between my appointments. You're going to have some that you're running late for. By the way, I do suggest don't tell people you're going to be there at 10 a.m. Tell them you'll be there between 10 and 11. In fact, coming back, Katrina, because you've got appointments that are taking longer, how do you manage the expectation of time when you know you are slowing down when you're sitting down with a client?
When I'm booking them immediately, I'm letting them know. I didn't used to do this, and trust me, I've learned it's best to do it. I'm letting them know. I say, hey, you know, I see a lot of people. I don't want you to think I'm being rude, but let's say and what I really like is between 11 and 1, or between 1 and 3. I try to give them a 2-hour time window, because if I get sitting with somebody and there's a chance that I'm going to write an application, I am not leaving. I don't care what time it is. I've had to reschedule half a day's appointments because of it. And that's kind of up to you, but I let them know when I'm doing that. Listen, if I'm sitting with somebody, I'm not going to tell them to shut up if they're not done asking questions. So I'm going to answer their questions. I can't be rude to people, you know, so it makes me behind. Sorry.
Yeah.
And they laugh because I always use the line, you know, I'm not going to tell somebody to shut up when they're not done asking me questions. And that's just the truth. I'm not going to.
Okay. All right. So notice we've spent 50 minutes talking about booking the appointment, building the relationship and the bond of rapport, and finding the pain or the need or the why and reviewing any coverage as part of that. I will tell you, if you get those 3 things right, the rest of the appointment's not difficult. Yes, you got to pay attention, but if you became great at those 3 areas, everything else is going to flow. So now you've already got a pattern of them answering questions. So now we're going into health stuff, right? And I mean, I could spend a lot of time here, but let's just hit the basics of this. Nicotine, tobacco, again, some simple things. What nicotine products or tobacco products are you using or have you been using? Not, oh, you look like a smoker, or you look like you're not a smoker. It says here you're a smoker. Ignore what information you have. Ask an open-ended question, and I would lean toward assuming that they've been using nicotine or tobacco, and then just get the truth. Hey, tell me, what nicotine or tobacco products y'all been using? When was the last time? Okay. Then you dictate what product fits based on the scenario. What medications are you taking? hey, do you have a little basket? I mean, if they're over 50, they probably do. Do you have your basket of medications? Hey, if you want to go grab that, this will go a lot faster. Or some people, oh, do you have your medication list? Or something they pull out their wallet and they've got like their, oh, I got my wallet right here. And yep, here's my list of medications. And, they start pulling out. They got in their wallet just in case. Bottom line is, what's that one for? How long you been taking it? And in some cases, yes, you need to be thorough. But here's one of the things somebody will tell me. Said, Mike, my client had a heart attack 6 months ago. I said, okay. And then they want to tell me, and then they had a hangnail, and they're taking blood pressure medication and cholesterol medication.
Stop at the heart attack.
I'm like, yeah, it's like, you had me at hello, except you had me at heart attack. We already know the Titanic has done hit the iceberg and we're going to the lifeboats. And so it's like, have some common sense when you find the biggest, most worst thing. Now, they may be all proud and want to tell you about all their other medications. You just kind of like, okay, well, that's great. Oh, that's a nice list. Yep, you kind of know at some point. Or when you walk in and, they've got the tube connecting them over to the oxygen tank.
What are you putting on your face, Mike?
And they're smoking at the same time. That's why you as an agent need life insurance, because if you blow up while in that home, we want you covered. Okay. But if they're on the oxygen tank, that's also limiting our options. We probably don't need to spend a lot of time talking about their medications. Now, do we? Save some time, be smart. If they don't have many medications, you still got to ask some things like, I'm big on medications because that's a tip off for other things, but what surgeries, what procedures, what hospitalizations, what treatments? Like some of them are kind of holding out, like they're kind of keeping even though they trust you and like you, they're hoping and praying you can get something for them. And so you've kind of got to be a little bit more thorough about your line of questioning just to make sure you're uncovering something now and not after you've already shown them a price for an option. So try to get the truth. Height and weight, driving record, criminal background check. If they sound like they're from a foreign country, how long's it been? Some of the products have foreign country, foreign travel stuff. Just being situationally aware. Some of that you might be building up during the early part of the appointment as you're getting to know them. Like you're picking up on stuff that might be important. Katrina, anything on like this, what I call the underwriting factors, anything else you're thinking like I missed or things that you do that are really critical in that process?
I've noticed, especially newer agents, some of the older agents do this too. They'll just write down the medications and take it from the client as to why they're taking them, which sometimes, like 5% of the time, is actually the reason why they're taking all those medications. Google, I think, is probably, one of the best things you could use. Just Google it. After a while, you'll know what medications are for what. But if you Google the med, you can see, like, for instance, you look at losartan or lisinopril or hydrochlorothiazide, or, I could name about 10 that have multiple different reasons why people would be taking them. Once you get familiar with the medications, you don't have to be a doctor. Just use Google. After a while, you'll start knowing what these medications are for. If somebody says, I haven't had any problems or anything. I'm on this for blood pressure, and it's a blood thinner. It's not likely that they're on a blood thinner for blood pressure. No, not so much. But a lot of people just take their word for it. Google it, look it up, find out, ask questions. If there's 5 different reasons why somebody would be taking medication, ask them, well, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? Have you ever had this? And most of the time, I make it really simple for them. I told you to redneck it down, right, Mike?
Yeah.
You got any problems breathing? Can you breathe? Yep. Okay. Ever had cancer, heart attack, stroke? Your heart ever go boom, boom, boom when it's supposed to go ba-boom, ba-boom? Ask them questions like that and just make it kind of funny and make it relatable. And I know exactly what they're telling me, and I know what these things are for. but I'm not gonna make them feel like they don't know. It's be like, so did they tell you there was ever an issue with this or this? And they'll go, oh, well, yeah, come to think of it, there is, So I'm just talking to them and really kind of dumbing it down, and Googling. Please Google before you call 5 other people and say, they're not on, they've never had a heart problem, but they're on a blood thinner. I mean, Google it. It'll save you a lot of time. And me too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's big. Yeah, and it's amazing how, when you go and you put in a medication right in the Google search, it's like it tells you what are the 3 or 4 biggest reasons it's been prescribed for. And if again, you can ask some clarifying questions right there. Also, the CFG Final Expense app, that app, it tells you sometimes it's dual purpose medication. If you get into loading that in and you're not sure, this one, I think I've seen it for this or this. Sometimes it gives you a couple of questions that help clarify too. I've used that with a client before. That can also help. So, all right, your health questions, you got to get them out of the way so we're not presenting a product that won't be approved. Now, we've covered booking an appointment. We've covered your buying a rapport when you get there. We've covered finding the pain, qualifying them health-wise. Now, the next key is if you're a newer agent, calling from the home to verify you're choosing the right product. Who do you call? A veteran agent that's smarter than you are. Veteran, I don't know, maybe been at it 6 months, 10 months, but somebody that's got a better sense of the field underwriting and how to work with the situation. And what do you say to the client? Some people say, I'm embarrassed to call. What do I say? Well, there's embarrassing ways to say things and not. You just say, hey, guys, I've got a pretty good idea of what we're going to be doing here. I'm going to check with one of our senior underwriters. Make sure the option I'm thinking about is the best option for your scenario. Now, some agents are thinking they need permission to use their own phone to make an outbound call. I'm like, what? It's your phone. You're calling the shots. Just like if a doctor says, hey, I think we're going to amputate your leg. Don't you think you'd want a second opinion? Or do you just want them to start hacking and cutting? It's like, come on now. It's not unprofessional for one doctor to call another doctor. It's a normal thing if you look at it in that context. Okay. What else can I tell you? Medications. I think but calling from the home, if you can't get person A, hopefully you have a backup of a person B or C. Hopefully, if you've got a group that's got a chat group, you can post a question on or ask a veteran agent to call you, post your number. There's just different tools if you're here and you're trying to figure out, okay, who should I be calling? Start with your upline or their upline or whoever you know is on the leaderboard and doing well at selling. If you know they're on track for the Thailand trip, that's a good idea that they know what they're talking about and can help you. So that's another big piece. All right, so now we're at a point of presenting options. So we kind of have an idea of what products to present. Katrina, what's the next? As you're identifying a few options, how do you decide how to lay out or display the options once you know you're going to present something?
Once I know I'm going to present something, I think the very first thing that I'm thinking about is what do they need? How can I help them? I'm going straight back to that. I'm sorry, it sounds like I'm a broken record. But that's how I sell things. So I'm going straight back to what do they need? Do they have insurance? Do they have anything in place? Is there something that I can do that will help them to where they're not spending any more money and they're still getting what they need? If so, what's that option? So I'm really going to pay attention before I just suggest something that they may or may not feel is important. I'm already going to understand and know what's important to them, so I'll know what to present. Once I know what to present, then I'm going to give them a choice, right? So I'm going to write this one, or this one. Let's say I'm doing a final expense. It's simple. I know their budget range is under $100 a month and they want to be buried. Okay. They're very serious about being buried. They definitely don't want to be cremated. They might go to hell. Okay. We know that this is important to them. So I know between $8,000 and $12,000 for burial. If you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, go get a price list from a couple of funeral homes. Trust me, you'll see. I mean, I've toured them before. It's cool what you'll learn, but you're not, at least you know that you're suggesting something that makes sense. So you come across credible. So if that's the case, I'm going most of the time like 8, 10, 12, and that's what I'm quoting. I said, this one, or this one. I'll write it down. I said, what makes more sense to you? Which one? And I'm asking them price-wise, because they're all going to meet their need. That's the whole point of the conversation. I'm going to meet their need no matter what. What price range works best for you? Well, I can do that $89 a month. I really would like the idea of just making sure I have plenty. There's no questions asked. Or, man, I need to stick close to the bottom of the budget. But again, we already know that's going to pay for something that they need. So I'm not worried about it. It's really about budget at that point in time.
Okay. So giving a few options, guiding them through the process. When somebody gives you, I need to think about it as you're laying out options, what's your typical response, or how do you manage it or walk them through the situation when you get that?
My response is to sit back and think about what I was missing. If somebody has given me a think about it, then I am missing something. They're not comfortable with me. Okay, could be that. I have totally gotten off on their budget range, or I didn't build a need. I mean, it's probably going to be one of the three. So most of the time I'm kind of backtracking at that point. Okay. So I'll start talking to them and find out where I missed it. And then I'll address that.
Okay.
But do you really not like me?
So, and I think, and now, is that the first time they say to think about it, or is that if they're really digging in on it? Because I think I sometimes will show options for me, and that's the first thing it's out of people's mouth. And it's not because they think they need to think about it like I've missed the mark. It's like after I eat a good meal, I'm going to burp or fart. It just comes up. I can't help it. And so with the clients, they're given a decision. Their reflex is, I got to think about it. And I don't know that they mean that per se as much as they're not sure what else to fill. So what I found is helpful. The tool I use, number one, is if it's a sustained think about it, yes, you go back and what did I miss? But the other piece is, okay, Joe, Sue, tell me, of the options here, which one do you like better? Which one are you leaning towards? Which one helps? And you had mentioned you're kind of walking them through that already. So something, I think that's important because you can get to think about it before you've kind of guided them through their thought process, or there's the think about it where it becomes a standoffishness. We're not going to do anything today. Think about it, where they're more resolute and it's not just an off the cuff type of a thing. So I think when and how they say, I need to think about it.
Yeah, it's going to make a difference.
It's like, oh, absolutely. Everybody does. Tell me, what are you leaning towards? What do you like best? What do you think is making the most sense? That's the kind of stuff. And then if it's still a problem, or they say, well, we don't want to make a decision today. How do you handle it? We don't want to make a decision today, Katrina.
Mike, I mean, I don't get it too much. I got to be honest. I really don't, because in the beginning, I'm kind of heading that off with, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick one that makes the most sense. We're going to apply. And then we'll find out what the insurance company is going to approve for you. If we need to make some changes, it's not an issue. We can make some changes at that point. Where are you leaning? Is this too expensive? And just like you said, asking them questions at that point in time. Well, I really want that $12,000. I want it so bad for them. That's what I really want. But that $89 a month, that's, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I need to look at my budget. Okay. I understand that. It's very reasonable. very reasonable. So I'm just going to let it out at that point. I said, well, looking at the money that you've got, what do you think would be best for your budget? I don't want you getting to the top of your budget. I want you to be able to keep this. I would rather them have $8,000 and you be able to pay for it than $12,000 and you have to cancel it and then they have nothing.
Right.
So why don't we just lower it? Don't worry about that. Woosah, calm down. If you want to raise it later, we'll raise it. But let's get them something.
So sometimes I think about it is I can't afford the options, or I'm embarrassed to tell you that I can't afford this.
Right.
Sometimes it's the feeling of being locked in and they want to feel like they're in control. So the first thing is another thing I do is I take away the decision option. It's like, oh, Katrina, Les, y'all can't decide anything today. Even if I had the best policy for you, you can't decide that you're going to get it. It's out of our hands. All I can do is dress you up and make you look good in front of the underwriters and send you over to them and see if they'll approve you. And then we've got the ability to decide while you're chewing on all this, if you want to have this amount that we apply for, a little more, a little less. We've got plenty of time for you to decide. Right now, there's no decision to make if we can't get an approval from them. And with your diabetes and COPD, I think we can. I just can't promise.
Right.
So it helping put the situation so they think they're in control and not necessarily you want them to feel in control of they've got some control of the process, but helping them understand deciding, no, they ain't deciding nothing. Except do they like you and will they let you lead them through the process? That we can get.
Right.
Okay. So now starting the application. So we've kind of got a path. We're now going through application, filling out an application, kind of mechanical. You're using a paper app, you're using an e-app, you're using a PDF file in a Notability. Whatever you're doing, okay, great. Filling out applications. Method of payment problems. If you've gotten them this far, you really shouldn't have method of payment problems. Maybe you do. Katrina, any tips on just, and again, we're maybe going a little quick here, because these last couple of steps, if you've done everything else right, these typically don't come up. But if at this point you get a method of payment problem or concern or bank info or blah, whatever it is, what are some other things you've had to deal with on the back end of the appointment as you're going through the application?
A lot of my clients, occasionally I'll run into it where they don't have a bank account. Thankfully, I run into that less than I used to. But, a lot of times there's a Direct Express card, or they have a credit card, or they have this or this or this. If you kind of know what all the companies take, then you have different options for them. That's the beauty of us working with all these different carriers. Not only do we have choices as far as underwriting is concerned, we have choices as far as where we put them for payment method. So I like that the little excuse me, what is it called, the underwriting tools or the product guide?
Product pocket guide.
Yes.
Like looking at I've got them all on my phone right there, and so I can go to product pocket guide, and that's going to show you the method of payment. So if you're looking at final expense and you say final expense high risk, and you want to look at, does Mutual of Omaha Living Promise take blah blah blah, and it says here accepts MetaBank. I can get my screen to show it without too much reflection there.
Takes credit cards or whatever. It's all right there in the product pocket guide. And that's something you showed me a while ago. And I love it because you don't have to constantly memorize what form of payment everybody takes. It's just right there. And I'll just transition them right over. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do then. It's going to be $1 more. Sorry, no biggie, right? It's just $1. And they'll say, oh yeah, not a problem. And they'll take this credit card or whatever. And for the most part, with when it comes to anything like that, I'm just telling people what we're going to do. It makes them feel more comfortable. I think whether you get to think about it or whether you have a payment problem or whatever it is that you're coming up against, you have to be confident in what you think that they should do. And instead of saying, well, what do you think? Do you think you could do this? Or do you think this might be too much? And hemming and hawing and doing, well, do you think you could go get me your policy? Or do you think you could get a credit card? Or do you think you could have a bank account? It's what we're going to do. You're going to get me your policy. Go get me a check. Oh, you don't have a checking account. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to use this company instead. It's $1. And you're telling them what to do, and then you're putting it in place. Go get it. Chop, chop. I need a check. No, I can't use a debit card. Chop, chop. Just telling them and being confident with what you're telling them that they need to do.
Yeah, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we need. Here's what, like using the word we, here's what we need. Hey, we need to get this, as opposed to I need this. If you use the we is such a powerful thing in your phrasing. All right, well, I could, from here, you've got your application. You've got it completed. Now, hopefully you've identified along the way as you've been listening and noticing that the Have Retirement Money, what's your plug? We're not going to go into the details of that transition of BAM family, tying in with Chris Norris. You're using the ERS system. You're executing that throughout this process. Or you're noticing their age, they're 64 or older, and hopefully you're thinking about being AHIP certified or planning to build your business and helping them out with the Medicare enrollment side. You're thinking about those three things and picking one, or what's your next battle. And this is where Megan Wood is awesome, as she's a great noticer, just like Katrina, and she's in the back of her mind thinking about whether I'm going to call them again next week for my next move, the next thing to do to help them, or she's taking a mental inventory of what's here and what do I need to do next, and planning to make this a client for life with the next move. She's planning it right now. Hey, once this is approved, I'm going to come over. I got another idea that you're going to like, or that we ought to talk about. And so it's that being that intentional, whether you're doing one more thing now or planning the one more thing, and letting them know and planting the seed for that is huge. Okay. And then, hey, by the way, we're covered up with this COVID. They got me working 6 and 7 days a week. Anybody that might be able to help us out? We are hiring. And so that's, those are your post-sale items. And then last thing, if you're a new agent, call before you leave. Why? Well, if you called someone during the appointment, call that same person back. Hey, helped out the family, got it taken care of. Or if you're leaving and you haven't gotten an application in a check, call to say, hey, Katrina, I'm sitting here with Joe and Sue Steele, and we're looking at having to do this, this, and this. And I just thought I'd touch base with you before we wrap up and before I get out of here onto my next appointment. You're not calling to say, Katrina, could you help me beat the premium out of these people? I've been trying, and I cannot get out their checkbook. They refuse to tell me where it is, and I've done tore up their house looking for it. That's not the way you want that call to come across. We're smart enough to ask you some questions so you don't got to rat them out for not moving forward. We will do our best to ask you some subtle questions so you can kind of paint a picture. And sometimes, based on how we hear them responded and you responded, we might be able to figure out where we went off track. Where did the wheels come off the track? So it's not, sometimes it might be, hey, we may have a chance to help you turn the deal around. Sometimes we might be able to help you figure out, where did I screw up in the process to have gotten this far away from my goal of helping them? That's why you call from the home. Or if you've gotten the deal, let's make sure your I's are dotted, T's are crossed. You didn't forget something dumb like the aptical phone interview with PlanRight, or to properly complete the e-app, or some of these other post-sale items. All right, Katrina, thank you so much. Thank you for T and Amber and the NAA Alliance staff for putting together this framework. I'm hoping this has been helpful. Katrina, it's obvious why you're at the top of the leaderboard and rocking the way you are. You've got a grasp, you're comfortable, and anybody else here, you'll pay attention to your craft. You too can become as good as Katrina. It's a matter of work, it's a matter of communication, it's a matter of more leads, and focus on building your business and building your craft. Y'all take care. Thank you.